Sitting in the theater for this, we saw the Evil Dead Rise trailer, which completely left my mind. And my God, the cheese grater scene that just sent shivers down my spine. I don't know why I'm talking about this. That was the trailer I saw. I am seeing that. So, whew, yeah, let's get that out of the way. Let's talk about Renfield.
Now, let's eat.
So doing my research and while doing this video, I found out that this was originally a Dark Universe film. If you're not like in the loop on that at all, since this has been like coming up on 6 years since this came and went, Universal attempted to make a cinematic universe based around all of the classic Universal monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, and all of that. And while it wasn't a terrible idea, it started off with the Mummy reboot starring Tom Cruise. And quite frankly, it's not an amazing movie. I don't have to tell you that. But the only appeal there is seeing Tom Cruise get the piss knocked out of him for like a little over 2 hours. Or maybe, I don't even know, it's like an hour and a half maybe? I'm not even entirely sure on that. But it's not a great movie. All the plans for that franchise, which had some pretty big stars involved, just got completely axed. The movies that were in development got reworked into standalone ones. One of them ended up being the Invisible Man movie that with Elizabeth Moss that I thought was pretty good. And apparently Renfield was one of them too. I just didn't know that. Although I do have to say I did like this movie, and it's very unfortunate that apparently this is bombing really bad right now. I think they should have put this out in like late September or October because this would have made bank then, I think. Because honestly, this has amazing potential on paper. So the main plot of this is we have Dracula and Renfield, and it's a sequel, it's a loose sequel, I would say, to the 1931 Dracula with Bela Lugosi. And we have Nicolas Cage, of all people, taking up the mantle of Dracula, and Nicholas Hoult playing Renfield. It's set 90 years later, set right now in modern New Orleans, I'm pretty sure it was. And it's Renfield essentially trying to get out of this relationship with him and live a normal life. And I think that's an incredible idea, and like framing it around a toxic relationship with like a work boss. There's scenes of group therapy that he's involved in, and it's an incredible framing device for this kind of thing. The movie itself, though, it's perfectly all right. I feel like I will say though, I'm not the first person to say this. If you've watched like other movie reviews on YouTube about this movie, it feels like this movie was split straight in half with its plot. Yes, you do have that Renfield plot, which is the better plot of all this. But on this B plot, you have this police procedural comedy involving Awkwafina and Ben Schwartz, who I did not know was in this. It was very nice to see him in something like this. And it's basically taking down like a mob family, and by close to the relative end, they end up intersecting. And this police taking on the mob plotline is fine, I guess. It was something I didn't really need in this kind of movie, but granted, I felt like if you took one of them and just made one movie out of it, it would be stretched pretty thin anyway. So, and plus, this is only an hour and a half. I mean, it flew by, I'll give them that. But it just, like, I was so much more interested in the plot with Renfield and Dracula. Believe it or not, I knew next to nothing about this going into it. I didn't expect it to be much of an action movie either. It's like a horror action comedy, and there's not really a lot of horror comedies in theaters right now, so I appreciate that being in theaters right now. The action itself is pretty over the top. It feels like something that would be out of a superhero movie, or I guess more specifically when it comes to this movie, the Kingsman films. This was surprisingly gory. Like, it was very over the top for me. There's a scene where, very early in the movie, where Dracula turns to dust, enters a priest, and just boom. I don't know if that was in the trailers. If it was, it was very wild to see because I didn't know this was rated R. And it was very funny to see that happen, and it was just really it was fun to see. There's also a lot of CGI blood in this, and it's pretty obvious that it's CGI. But there's so much of it, and by the end, it kind of worked. It added more character to the movie, and that it felt really goofy. I didn't think it was. I figured it was gonna be a little goofy, but it's like it just kept getting goofier and goofier as it goes along, and it is just the CGI blood eventually ended up working, and I can't believe I'm saying that. I guess the one weak link here is the comedy. It's very quip heavy. There was one line in the trailers that didn't make it in, and I thought it was like the worst joke in the movie or not in the movie, and just it was like if it's not your kind of comedy, you will probably not like this. 'Cause there's a lot of it in there, but I am not annoyed by this style of comedy at all, at least not yet. So I was fine with it, but not everything landed. I guess I'm gonna point out like some standout actors. I think Nicolas Hoult, which I have loved seeing him in for a, I loved seeing him in things for a while. Even though it wasn't really exactly acting powerhouse movies, I liked him as Beast in the newer X-Men movies. But what else I really liked him in was The Menu. I think that was a pretty incredible comedic performance for him. And God, I need to watch The Menu again so I can do a video on that because there's a lot to take away from that one. But I thought Nicholas Hoult was one of the best parts of The Menu. It really showed off this comedic timing of his. I thought was great, and honestly, he makes for a pretty good lead in this too. I already mentioned Ben Schwartz being in this, and that was a bit of a shock to me. And he's not really playing the typical character he would play. He's like the mob boss's son, and it's much more of a villain role for him than I would ever anticipate him taking. And it was a very nice change of pace to see him in that kind of role. And honestly, maybe outside of Sonic the Hedgehog, I would love to see him take more villain roles like this. Also, I'm very glad that Awkwafina didn't really become the quippy sidekick in this, because she's really been, at least to me, becoming a very good actor in my eyes. If you haven't seen The Farewell, I think that's where you should go if you want to see her as a more serious actor. And I think Shang-Chi, her role in that blends the comedy and her more dramatic chops better than Renfield, but she doesn't do a bad job in this. Yeah, I've been avoiding it in this review. I'm pretty sure you want me to talk about Nick Cage in this. He's pretty easily the best part of this movie. He just nails it. You can tell that this has been a character he's been wanting to play for a long time. He puts in the dedication for this role, and plus, also shout out to the makeup department in this, just because there are parts where, for a good chunk of this movie, he's like rebuilding and coming, like healing, and the makeup they do for him is stunning. It is just like him, like there are parts of him where like parts of his body are gone, and you can see the insides of his head, and it looks fantastic. It just does. He looks incredible in this. And also, I feel like saying, like, writing on paper, oh, Nicolas Cage plays Dracula, you know what to expect from it. It's pretty much exactly what you think it is, and it rides that line of being very goofy and also really scary that I just think he nailed. I'm going to use that to segue into another thing that I thought was really neat in this. There were articles seeing like side-by-side pictures of Cage and Bela Lugosi, just seeing how much they look alike, which I think they really look alike in this. And there are scenes in this they recreate scenes from the Bela Lugosi starring Dracula film, where they recreate scenes from it. Nick Cage and Nick Hoult recreate stuff from it, and they nailed it there too. There was just it looked absolutely fantastic, and just I think that just Nick Cage seeing them do that was just really seemed like they had a lot of fun doing this. So yeah, I guess that's my full thoughts on this. There's parts of me that want to say this could have been so much better, like writing down the idea of a toxic workplace comedy horror, but it's Dracula and Renfield, is a very great idea. And I'm not saying I don't want them to remake it or anything, but I just they had something there and it worked for what it did, but they could have gone harder with that. Although I will say, I thought the movie was pretty fun overall. Nicolas Cage is easily the best part of it. If you're seeing it from Nicolas Cage, you won't be disappointed. But everybody else does pretty good too, and I feel like this is pretty fun enough where I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. All right, have you seen Renfield? I hope you did, because it's really bombing, and I hope this does well at some point. Also, my question for you is, since this is really the first time I've talked about Nicolas Cage on the channel, what's your favorite performance from him? I feel like there's so much you can pull from just from Nick Cage's filmography, and just working through all of it. My personal favorite movie of my that he's starred in at least is Mandy. I think that's one of my favorite movies ever, if I'm being honest. But tell me what you think of Renfield, what you think of Nick Cage in general. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.